The Girl with Seven First Names is a book written by Jaymes Captain Logan. That's right, the veil is lifted. His first name is Jaymes. I say this not because I am still plotting revenge against my arch nemesis over at Geekvolution, but because I am not a fan of nicknames in a serious review. Sorry, bud. Wait a minute. Damn it! Anyway, The Girl with Seven First Names follows a therapist named Franklin who takes on a patient with multiple personalities whose strange past and unknown purpose get the pair tangled in a web of chaos, mystery, and wires. I say wires because of all the killer robots. Which brings me to my first point, which is also the nicest thing I can say about this book. The Girl with Seven First Names is unapologetically sci-fi. Let me elaborate on what I mean by that. You know how a lot of science fiction is sold to people like a nice car with a bad scratch? I mean, someone will say, yeah, I know it's science fiction, but if you just look past that part and accept it, it's actually really good for blah blah blah. This is said about movies like Planet of the Apes and a ton of other sci-fi books, movies, and shows. People are ashamed and apologetic about the improbability of it all. This book is not. It flaunts its sci-fi-ness. It's like the story jumped into a rocket ship that was set to travel to another dimension and was exposed to dangerous chemicals, which ended up helping it lead an army of oppressed aliens in an uprising against an evil alien dictator who also led a band of robot space pirates. By band, I mean an actual techno band of space pirates. Yeah! Did that cover all the sci-fi stuff? Rockets, dimension travel, aliens, space pirates, robots, superpowers. Ah, crap! I forgot about giant monsters. Okay, throw Godzilla somewhere in that ludicrous summary I just did. Moving on. What annoys me about a lot of science fiction is that the story is only set in a futuristic world with advanced technology because the story requires one element of tech that doesn't exist. Otherwise, a lot of these stories could have their settings completely changed as long as the tech is still there. They'd play out exactly the same way. This book does not do that. It necessitates the world that it is on every page. The story that unfolds, but more importantly, the characters that partake in it, could not possibly exist in any other setup for a world. That's actually really rare when you're making up everything that's happening in the world of a novel. It's really easy for an author to slip up and make their fictional world too much like the real one so that the story gets to a point where the environment is little more than odd window dressing for a typical home. Jaymes masterfully avoided this on every single page. Okay, now for what's wrong with the book, because although I liked it, I have to remain objective and point out some of the problems I had while reading it. There are two big problems for me, one of which was some of the rules set in the world of the book don't seem to be followed reasonably enough. Now you're probably like, but Ian, you just said it was really super sci-fi, how can you complain about what's going on not being reasonable? Well, I'm not. I'm complaining about some things going on not being reasonable within the world as set up in the novel. Like, one scene that really sticks in my mind because it bugs me so much. Franklin has a wife who's a different species than he is, and whose species has incredible powers of intuition. As in, something went down at Franklin's work in one chapter, and his wife perfectly summarized it in the next within like 2 sentences. And that's fine. Like I said, this world allows for that, and we should accept it. If his wife has super intuition, then that's fine. My problem is that this power oversteps its boundaries later on in the book and thus stops working by its own rules. In a later scene, Franklin's wife is able to say the name of one of Franklin's patients presumably without having ever heard it or met the patient before. This bugs me. It's done a few more times later in the book. Intuition is one thing. You can be intuitive enough to guess my powers out as I record this based on the sound of a generator running in the background and the sound of my voice. That's deductive and based on reason and intuition. However, guessing that my house is bluish-gray and that I'm wearing a black shirt, just based on this video alone, that's not intuition. There's nothing to glean from that, and Franklin's wife really had no way to glean a name. What's wrong? Sure, Franklin could give that away by the tone in his voice or how he's discussing the patient. There are a few other moments in the book like that, where the rules seem to bend too far just to avoid exposition or to help move the plot along. This doesn't kill the book by any means, but it made me do a few double takes. Another really big thing that bugged me about this book is some of the editing. I would have expected errors like this when the book was self-published, but Now that it's been through a professional editing service, I find some of the mistakes really annoying. It's not that I'm a stickler for punctuation and grammar so much as it's something else that's getting me about it. Let me just preface this point by saying most of the editing is fine, rarely spot an issue, but some of it seems off and I'm not sure if it's on purpose. See, I thought that since there's a mystery to what's happening in the story, that there might be clues hidden throughout the book, hidden within the lines. I'm now reasonably sure of this given that on page 382 there seems to be something using brand new characters from the rest of the book. But I'm still sure some of the editing is just wrong and not part of a hidden message, because every so often I find O's that are supposed to be zeros. This bugs me because I feel like I'm getting clues that really aren't clues. There are a few other small issues I had with the book, but they're really not worth mentioning. Neither are some of the other good things I had to say about it. Probably because most of my favorite things I don't want to say because they involve spoilers, and most negative things I have to say are just one-off instances that are forgiven when considering the book as a whole. Overall, I highly recommend picking up a copy of This Girl with 7 First Names. It's fun and cheap, so buy 2 and give 1 to your library or something. I'm going to give The Girl with 7 First Names 4.5 stars out of 5. What I liked about it, I really liked, and what I criticized it for stuck with me just enough that I can't completely look past it.
I came from a long line of career criminals. My father, his father, his father. I think his father was a hot air balloonist, but his father before him. It's in my blood, Franklin. I am what I am.